Are you age 60 with $1 million saved for retirement and trying to figure out, hey, do I have enough to retire? How much will I be able to spend in retirement? And if I'm able to retire, when will that be? Well, that's what we're gonna walk through today. We're gonna walk through a recent case study that I went through with a prospective client not too long ago. And we're gonna walk through this exact scenario for someone who's 60 with $1 million saved. But first, if I haven't met you yet, my name is Jacob Duke. I'm a certified financial planner, and the purpose of this channel is to help you succeed in retirement. So let's go ahead and walk through this scenario of a sample couple. They're both age 60 and they've got $1 million saved for retirement. Now, just know that the names are going to be changed. And so we've got Doug and Judy Sample here on the screen. But the information and the numbers and the data, that is actually real life scenario from that conversation I just had not long ago. So here we can see that they are actually both age 60 right now, and their goal is to retire right now today at age 60. Now let's take a look at their overall asset makeup and kind of where things are. So we see that they have a total net worth of just over 1.5 million, but it's important to understand that 500,000 of that is actually in their primary residence where they actually have that paid for already. So there's no mortgage, no debt on that, so they own their house outright. The primary bulk of their retirement savings is in Doug's 401k, where he has $650,000. Doug also has a Roth IRA with $60,000 in it. They have some cash, also a joint taxable investment account, and then Judy's 401k has $125,000. So that is their liquid net worth of about $1 million in all those different accounts combined. So let's go ahead and take a look at their goals for retirement. Well, the first goal that we see is that they're hoping to actually retire this year when they turn age 60, and they're already 60. So the goal is to retire right now today and want to see if this is possible or not. Also, in order to maintain their current standard of living, they're hoping to spend around $8,000 a month on their different expenses because they've got a couple car payments and things like that. So we want to make sure that we factor that into their plan in terms of how much they're going to be spending. So they don't want to change their lifestyle. They don't want to pull back any in terms of how much they're spending. So we want to keep that at $8,000. Also, we want to factor in their annual healthcare cost, right? Because this is something that is probably going to be increasing a little bit due to them not being with an employer anymore. Therefore, they're going to have to find some other source of insurance for their healthcare since they're not yet 65. That's when Medicare would kick in, but right now they're probably going to have to go the private insurance route, and their premiums might be a little bit more. So I want to factor that in as well in terms of their overall cost of living each month. Now, also, they mentioned, hey, they like to travel. So we want to factor that in to their overall plan. But for now, we're going to walk through this in just a little bit. But for now, we're going to keep that at a $0 annual spending amount. And in the future, later on here in the video, we're going to talk about how we can tweak that, increase that, and then show you some of the ways that that changes their plan overall. We also want to look at their income. So right now, Doug is earning $110,000 per year from his salary. Judy is making around $50,000 a year for a combined income of $160,000 per year. Right now, they're obviously not taking their Social Security yet because they're still age 60, and we're not going to start that at 62, or that's not the initial plan. We're going to start that at 67, which would be their full retirement age. They want to make sure that they get their full benefit that they paid into the system. They want to make sure that they get that out one day. So they are opting to delay that until full retirement age. And here we can see that Doug's benefit at full retirement age will be $3,100 per month. And Judy's will be a little bit less, but it'll be $2,300 per month at that point. So immediately we can see that we've got this kind of bridge or this gap that we've got to make up between age 60 and age 67 whenever their Social Security will turn on. During that 7-year period though, that's whenever they will have to be pulling distributions from their retirement accounts, whether it be 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, different accounts. And I think we're going to find out here in a second that their distribution rate might be too high based on that particular scenario. So let's go ahead and take a look at this and see what their overall rate of success looks like based on the current plan as it stands right now. So we can see that they have a 15% chance in terms of probability of success. Now, that's obviously not where we want to be, but let's go ahead and kind of look into some of the different things that we can change to say, how do we improve that? And then I also want to make a comment on a little bit about the probability of success percentage and how reliable that may or may not be. So the first thing that we know is, well, we've got age 60 as their intended retirement age. So one of the first thoughts that comes to mind, because they mentioned, hey, we love what we do. At some point, we just want to kind of pull back a little bit in terms of how much we're working because it is so demanding. So I presented the option to them to say, hey, well, what if you worked a couple extra years? What will that change and how will that affect your retirement goals? So if we make that change and we say, instead of retiring at age 60, what if we retired at 62? So I'm going to refresh that. And that increased our probabilities of success just a little bit. Now, it is a positive change, but it's also not enough to move the needle completely. Now, another thing that I wanted to kind of look at as well and ask them was, hey, is $8,000 a month actually what you need? Is there a way to decrease that, or do you think there might be more than that that's necessary? And they said, well, we might actually could spend $1,000 less a month and not do anything extravagant. So I wanted to actually see, hey, how does that change things if we say instead of $8,000 a month, what if we did $7,000 a month? And what does that affect in terms of our long-term success? Wow, okay, so that made a pretty big difference. And just tweaking things a little bit, that's whenever we can actually begin to make improvements and changes and see that, oh, it's really not as far off or as impossible as we might think. It's just these small little tweaks in terms of how much money we're taking from our accounts, or perhaps even when we're taking money from our accounts. What if we delay our retirement by a couple of years? That way we ultimately can sleep better at night throughout retirement, knowing that we will succeed. All those things begin to factor in, and we want to make sure that we include that here in the plan. So we've made a couple changes so far. We went from 15% probability of success, and just so I can show you, how does that change things? Well, immediately we see that if based on the old plan of retiring right now today at 60, and then also taking $8,000 a month from their portfolio, that leaves them running out of money at age 80. So 20 years from now, they would have no money left over because they were having to take so much out early on in retirement. Now, whenever we changed that and we said, hey, we're going to delay retirement until 62, and then we're also going to decrease the annual distribution or the monthly distribution amount from 8,000 to 7,000, we're going to see that, wow, now this green section here, that's saying because of those changes, here's how much more money you would be left with whenever you pass away or at the end of your plan. So just those really small couple tweaks make a big difference in terms of their overall success rate throughout their retirement. Now, one thing I did want to make a point on in terms of the probability of success and that percentage number, we get so fixated sometimes on it in terms of it needs to be 100% before I'm even thinking about ever retiring, or 80% is good enough, or something maybe there in between. The way I would like to think of that, or kind of encourage you to think of that number, is not whether or not you fail 43% of the time and succeed 57% of the time in our current proposed plan here. It's not necessarily a pass-fail situation. It is saying that 43% of the time, based on the current plan, we're going to have to make an adjustment that would ultimately keep us going on the right track. So it's not a 43% of the time you're going to fail. It's 43% of the time you might have to make some adjustments or tweaks along the way. So every year we're adjusting that for inflation by 3%. So every year it's going up in terms of how much they're going to be spending. But I found over time by doing this that most people spend a lot more money early on in retirement, so the first 10 years, and then also in the last couple of years because of healthcare costs. But in the middle, there's this lower spending kind of period. And because of this, there's been coined the phrase, well, what if there's the retirement smile in terms of spending? So you've got higher spending years in the early stages of retirement because you're maybe having fun, going to visit family, traveling, things like that. But later on in retirement, your 70s and 80s, you kind of stop spending as much because you're not traveling as much and you're not doing as many things. Therefore, you don't have to spend as much money. But then later on in retirement, right before perhaps you pass away, health costs begin to arise and different things like that from a health perspective. So you kind of start spending more a little bit there as well. So that's called the retirement smile. Your spending is not always steadily increasing based on inflation. So because of that, I want to make a change here really quickly to see, hey, we're at 57% right now. We're delaying their retirement by 2 years because they said, hey, we're willing to work. We just want to start pulling back at some point. It'd be okay. It wouldn't blow up our life if we decided to push back retirement a couple of years. So we're going to do that. And then also they mentioned that over those 2 years, they can begin saving more money into cash and ultimately decrease how much they're having to spend out of their portfolio. So we're going to decrease that from $8,000 a month down to $7,000 a month. So that got us from 15% all the way to 57%. But let's see what happens whenever we change our retirement spending calculation from inflation adjusted to the retirement spending smile. So this is going to be a positive increase. And now we're at that 80% probability of success. And remember, that 20% is not saying that you're going to fail 20% of the time. It just means that 20% of the time you're probably going to have to make some adjustments, which is totally okay. But because we're actually giving a real life situation here and saying we're probably going to spend more early in retirement, we're going to decrease over the years that we're living throughout retirement, and then later on at the later stages, we're probably going to spend a little bit more due to healthcare costs. But because of that realistic kind of spending cycle, now we're seeing that the probability of success in terms of retirement is that much greater. And in this situation, if they're going to do this, I would say, hey, this is actually a possible retirement situation. They can actually do this. If they delay it by 2 years, they decrease their spending just a little bit on the monthly basis. And once their Social Security kicks in, they're going to actually decrease their withdrawal rate by a large amount, and they're not going to have to take as much from their portfolio. Therefore, they won't need as much money because their Social Security will be so much of their normal income that they're going to need. So I hope this kind of case study situational analysis is helpful for you. And if it is, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and also let me know what other kind of things would you like to see here from the screen share. Would you like to see tax implications, maybe Social Security timing? Let me know in the comments below if this was helpful and what you'd like to see more of. But thank you so much for tuning into this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, go ahead and give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.